This is WBSM On Demand.
Good morning. Good morning. Always great seeing Tim when I get here. I was listening to him on the ride over. I want to point out that he's right. We are living in times that many of us don't remember with the Patriots. We were so spoiled with Tom Brady. So spoiled with Tom Brady. But there's a lot to pay attention to with the Patriots, and you can catch them here on WBSM. Every Sunday, WBSM. All right, folks. We're going to have the mayor of New Bedford here at 11 o'clock. We're going to have Robert Bryce. He's an energy writer. We're going to have him at 10 o'clock. He's going to phone us from Texas, talk about Donald Trump's energy pick, why it's a good pick. He knows him. Christopher Wright is his name. So that'll be pretty good radio for you. You'll know more about the energy pick and why he's important to America, right? Everything is energy. Every high price is based on inefficient energy, really. The price of energy is built into every single product. So if Donald Trump is going to try to live up to his campaign promise to lower energy costs, to lower prices at the grocery store, he's going to have to lower energy. 508-996-0500. We'll have the mayor at 11 o'clock, like I said. He's making some significant changes to the city. He wants to add a new position, and he wants to add a corporate headquarters to the city, which I think is kind of interesting, right? And we'll have the mayor explain more. He had a press conference yesterday, but we're glad to have the mayor in today at 11 o'clock. So kind of open phones for the first hour, 508-996-05. If it's on your mind, if it's interesting to you, it's probably interesting to me. We'll take a call now. Good morning. Thanks for holding.
Hey, good morning, Chris.
What's happening, Nick?
Not too much. I've been kind of curious about the construction that's going on up on Sharman Avenue near the landfill or the transfer station where ABC used to be.
Yes.
Right in the corner there of Nash Road and Sharman Avenue. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
The area?
Is that the old Building 19 site?
No, that's not where I'm at. Where I'm at is the, if you go down Sharman Avenue, you go across Sharman Avenue, heading north towards the airport.
Yes.
Building 19 would have been off to your right.
Okay, yep.
But you keep going straight there. You cross the railroad tracks by the old Agway.
Yes,
and
I'm with you.
The area there with the
Martin's is over there, right?
Yeah, it's just a little bit past Martin's. Then you have Nash Road cutting across, and then right on the other side of Nash Road is the construction area. Sharman Avenue and Nash Road.
Yes, I'm with you. But so what's happening over there?
Well, I think people have been calling in, asking what's going on over there and what's going up. And I was just in there, and I talked to a couple of people. And they said one of the buildings being built there is sort of a repair facility for the vehicles that deal with the transfer station. But there's about 2 acres there. There's about, I think there's going to be about, it looks like there's going to be about 40 to 60 charging stations going in there.
Oh,
They're going
really?
up now. Yeah. I think it's about 40 to 60. And there's they got guys over there, multiple guys over there working on individual charging stations, just getting them up.
So that'll be right off the highway. That's kind of interesting, right?
It is. I wonder if it has anything to do with the MBTA coming in or the certain buses or whatever. I don't know.
I don't know either, but we can ask the mayor about it.
Yeah.
That and maybe let me see, what is that? That's Ward 3. I believe that's Ward 3. Could be Ward 1. Maybe those councils, both of whom listen.
That's where the Burgo man wanted to put the homeless tents.
It is.
City.
You're right about that,
Yeah.
Burgo.
You're going to get more free electric or something. I don't know.
Maybe that's what he's doing. He's going to put in charging stations up there for the homeless. Going to give them electric cars.
Yeah. All right. See you later, Chris.
Hey, thanks for the call, Nick. 508-996-0500. That's how you can get on the program. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be right back. Stick around. I'm Chris McCarthy. If you want to get on, you can at 508-996-0500. Welcome back to the program. I'm Chris McCarthy, and you're the audience. 508-996-0500. Remember, we'll have the mayor at 11 o'clock. Normally he's here on Wednesdays. I believe he's going to be out of town, so he's here on a Tuesday. 508-996-0500. If it's on your mind, I bet it's interesting to me. You can give me a call. What do you think about the mayor adding an additional position to the payroll? Now, it's going to be 2 years with ARPA, right? 2 years with ARPA funds. And then the city will have to pick the position up if they want it. There is some pushback in the city council. Not a lot, really, but there is some pushback in the city council. There has been pushback on the mayor's budget for a number of years. And the mayor says, look, comparatively, and he knows budgets and other mayors from around the country, their staffs, he says, comparatively, we run a lean operation. Now, people who have lived in New Bedford say, well, it's the biggest staff we've ever seen in a mayor's office. And we don't really care what happens in other cities. We care about what happens here where we have to pay for it. 508-996-0500. But it's kind of open topics here for the first hour. Good morning. Thanks for holding.
Hey, bud. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm not doing too bad. So I'm going to go a little global on you, if that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So it came across the newswire that obviously Ukraine just fired a couple of our missiles into a northern border of Ukraine into Russia. And Russia has indicated a response that they are ready with their nukes. So the coming across the newswire now is the White House had a response was we're not even going to acknowledge what Putin just said. We're just going to kind of ignore it. So I figured I'd bring that one up because there seems to be a lot of pushback, and I want to get your perception on this. The pushback is Ukraine shouldn't be using American long-range missiles to fire into Russia, but yet the Russians can fire long-range missiles into Ukraine and also put North Koreans on the ground, potentially continuing to invade into Ukraine. Where do you stand on that? You know, I'm kind of going to lean on you because you got a little bit more of a foreign policy head than I do.
Well, I would say this. The United States is trying to stay out of that conflict as much as possible, right? The idea that the Russians would use North Koreans isn't really surprising. The fact that the Russians would fire their own missiles into the Ukraine isn't surprising. If you look at the problem that we have here in the country with the Palestinian supporters, it's that we're allowing the Israelis to use our weapons in their war against the Palestinians, right? The Hamas and the Hezbollah. So, but you can't separate the two. In other words, once we took sides in the Ukrainian-Russian war, and I think we're on the right side with the Ukrainians, you knew it was going to escalate.
Yeah. So Another point that I saw, obviously, that I heard on Bloomberg, that there has been 2 cables cut up in the Baltic, 2 communication cables, not intercontinental, but between the 2 countries, like Finland and Sweden, over to other countries. And it happened one right after the other. Yes. These are major submarine communication cables, and it happens right along this. And it happened actually earlier this year also. It happened in August. So that's a major concern also, because in August, China actually admitted, oops, sorry, we did it. I'm concerned about that as well. So that's what I wanted to throw out there, because it escalated on Biden saying, yeah, you guys can use it, but they hit a weapons depot, right? Kiev, Ukraine, they hit a Russian weapons depot that was being used to kill Ukrainians, and it's right over the border, about 75 miles in. Right. It's not like they were hitting Moscow. It's not they were hitting Putin's summer house. They were hitting a weapons depot. So, I mean, obviously, I don't trust the Russians. Obviously, I don't trust how they'll react, and I don't know if their red lines are more solid than our red lines. But I figured I'd put that one out there for you, because I know you, like I said, you have more of a foreign policy head than I do. Wanted to get your perception.
So, from the very beginning, Ray, back when Marcus was here, we were talking to Congressman Keating about it, and I said here on the radio, I'm all for helping the Ukrainians, but let's remember, we're giving them weapons. This is when Donald Trump, in his first administration, gave them weapons. I said, we are giving them lethal weapons to kill Russians. And where does it end? What is the implications for us with Russia? I think it was really irresponsible of President Biden. It doesn't surprise me that as he's going out the door, he grants them one more permission to escalate the war. It doesn't surprise me. It shows you really how small of a commander-in-chief Joe Biden really is. That he would leave this, it was a problem. It was something he could have done 2 years ago, but he didn't. And instead, he's going to do it on his way out the door. It really shows you it's never safe to vote Democrat, really, when it comes to foreign policy.
So when we're talking about back channels, do you think Donald Trump or his administration can have back channels to Putin, with Putin already knowing that Biden's out the door, and kind of, ignore the old man that's spouting off the top of his head because we have another administration coming? Or do you think Putin, being the maniac that he is, take advantage of the inter-administration kind of point in time that we're in?
So I would say that he's a KGB agent. He would always take advantage of, if it's considered an advantage, he'll take it, right? And so, yes. But he also invaded another country, recognizing he was going to take losses, huge losses, and he recognized where the U.S. was going to come down, and he was willing to do it. So I would imagine that Putin has expected these long-range missile attacks for a long time, and it's calculated into his plan. It's not like he was taken by surprise,
Right. Yeah, exactly. I don't think he was ever shocked that the United States would obviously take the position of Ukraine, and that we would fund it. We have a history of doing it. We did it against Germany in World War II. So it's very historically correct. There's past precedents where we stand and what we do. So it's not like it just gets me, obviously concerned when you start hearing the nuclear saber start to rattle over in Moscow.
Well, here's the thing. What he recognized, and thanks for the call, my friend, what Putin recognizes, and it goes back to the Vietnam and the Korean War, that if you can impact the homeland of the United States, you can slow down the war machine, right? That if he can scare American civilians with nuclear threats, we'll lose our interest in the war. So I would say that as the coming administration comes in, you'll see a little more of that. But hopefully we won't be bluffed, right? Hopefully we won't be bluffed. And hopefully he won't do it, right? 508-996-05 so you can get on the program. Good morning. Thanks for holding.
Hey, good morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing well, Barry. How are you?
I'm doing well. A lot of traffic, just so, your listening audience, if anybody's heading up to Boston on 95, because I guess there's 40 acres. Our good friend Tim Weisberg talked about it this morning over by Milton and Blue Hills, Chris.
40 acres. Is there a mule?
40 acres on fire, yeah.
It's
yes,
crazy.
Green acres. No, and say hi to Steph.
Hi, Steph.
Chris. Good morning. Good morning.
So yeah, just so people can plan, 95 is a rec show, and I know where you're going to go with this and how the fires started, but we do have to take care of these homeless people, and it is getting colder at night, Chris.
No,
But
I think you're right about that, Barry.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, your Democratic friend who likes to take care of everybody. But Chris, I got to be honest with you. I was on the phone with Dave Ragucci, Mayor Ragucci, and he plays golf up in Lynn, and the Lynn Woods caught fire. Same thing. It was homeless people, and same thing with the Salem Woods. So, maybe we can come up with some additional resources to take care of these people in the cold. But it's just so you're listening, audience. And I know you have a lot of people that are on the road, and the smoke was coming right across 95 this morning.
That's a sound, safe information, Barry. What I would say is that it goes back to my theory of beautifying places where the homeless are by giving them costumes. So if we put one homeless person in one of those big smoky bear costumes, right, that's got to be warm. If it's not warm, we can juice it up a little bit, right? Make it a little warmer. Make the costume a little warmer and have them roam around the woods with their homeless buddies saying, only you can prevent forest fires, right? Maybe give one a woodsy owl costume. That's got to be pretty insulated, right? The woodsy owl costume. So if you get one homeless person in a smoky bear costume, one homeless person in a woodsy owl costume, right there, those people are warm. So that's 2 down. And they roam, and they can obviously switch out of the costume, right? And each one of them can take turns patrolling the woods and reminding their other homeless people that only you can prevent forest fires. Or give a hoot, don't pollute. Just a thought. Good morning. Thanks for holding. You're live on the air.
Well, good morning, Barry. Interesting about
it's actually
what's
Chris,
going on
but
with,
how are you doing?
Chris, I'm sorry. You threw me off guard with that last caller, impersonating an on-air personality with the same name, but I digress. I think the U.S. policy under Biden in Ukraine, Biden has about gotten it right. Number one, he has not had any U.S. troops committed. No U.S. blood is being spilled. These are people who are fighting international monolithic atheistic communism and willing to do the fighting, willing to do the dying. And I say that's just fine. And I think the incremental approach to it is exactly right, because otherwise you're only escalating it when you do it first.
Okay.
And I think we have to remember who invaded whom and who attacked civilian targets first. And that essentially, because the United States was willing to say, well, okay, why don't you pick on somebody your own size? The Russian military outnumbers the Ukraine military 10-1. 10-1. And the early predictions were that Ukraine was going to collapse in a matter of weeks.
Oh, President
days,
Biden offered Zelensky a ride out.
Well, true. And we can go back to how Bashar Assad was at the airport ready to go before the Obama administration, and one of the most feckless secretaries of state we ever had, Hillary Clinton, kind of said, well, maybe not. But I think the point is that it comes down to what are you going to do? And I heard a panel discussion with a former a Bush administration State Department official, who said that you have to make sure that whatever denouement, whatever resolution to it is, does not humiliate one party or the other. Because when you humiliate one party, that is when they will go to extremes such as nuclear weapons. And so far, the message in Ukraine has been very much what the message was in Afghanistan for the Russians, that, well, you can go over there and you can bomb them, you can shoot them, you can burn them, you can bribe them, you can rape them, you can do whatever you want. And at the end of the day, you're going to pack up and go home. And that what the Biden administration has done is essentially said, you're not going to win this. Right? Might doesn't make right. And you can't get away with this. And that should send a message, I think, and this is important in the global context, to the Chinese, who are right now judging what the U.S. response is to the invasion of an otherwise sovereign state by a world power. And the Chinese are looking at our response and looking at Taiwan and seeing just how much they can get away with. If we basically, I guess what I'm not hearing from anybody is, well, what should we do? I don't hear that. What I hear is essentially a chorus of people who have this Biden never got anything right, including this. And one point of fact, I think the record shows he's gotten exactly right. A small group of people, well armed, with the resolve to do the fighting, do the dying, not Americans, no boots on the ground. I said, fine. I thought that's what being a world power was all about, was enabling people to preserve their freedom if they're willing to make the sacrifice, enable them to make it a fair fight.
Hey, thanks for the call. The Russians are brutal. They are brutal. If you look at what they've done in the Ukraine, they're brutal. Absolutely brutal. And the United States can't allow this to happen. In other words, everybody else is watching, as the caller just said. Xi is watching. The fact that they've imported North Koreans onto the European continent to fight for them is amazing. They're also using Iranian drones, Iranian technology. If you read any of the defense publications, they'll show you the photographs, all the evidence of the Iranian drones that are being used on a daily basis by the Russians. And those North Koreans, the communist troops of the North Koreans, they need a battlefield. The reality of warfare is that you need to keep an army trained and you need to give them real-world experience, okay? And the North Koreans haven't had a war since the Korean War with South Korea and the United States, right? So the North Koreans are giving their soldiers training and seasoning on the battlefield to develop leadership skills under combat conditions. What are they intending on using those North Korean soldiers for after they come out of the Ukraine? That is the really fascinating thing to think about. One of the fascinating things to think about here. 508-996-0500. Good morning. Thanks for holding. Hello, you're on the air. Hello, you're on the air. God damn it. Anyway, excuse me. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the program. I'm Chris McCarthy. And look, it's getting to be the holiday season, right? It's beautiful outside. And it's a great time to start your Christmas shopping. If you haven't already started at Carter's Clothing and Footwear, clothes that fit your South Coast lifestyle and make really great Christmas and holiday gifts. Owned and operated since 1947. 77 years. You can really trust the family and the folks that work at Carter's Clothing and Footwear. They have great brands like Carhartt, Chippewa, Timberland, Levi's, Dickies, Merrell, New Balance, Under Armour, Champion. Everybody remembers when they have a shopping trip to Carter's Clothing and Footwear. It's a South Coast tradition, a brand you can trust, carrying brands you can trust at prices that can't be beat anywhere. So the other nice thing about Carter's Clothing and Footwear is you can buy a gift certificate there, feeling very comfortable with it. I know that's how the Lang family often celebrates the holiday, with a gift certificate from Carter's Clothing and Footwear. That is, it's better than a Continental, right? It's as good as gold, a gift certificate from Carter's Clothing and Footwear. They are open 7 days a week, extended holidays hours, free parking at both locations, downtown New Bedford and downtown Fall River. Oftentimes, you'll see a member of the Carter's family right on location. They've got really unique New Bedford gear there, particularly for people that live in and around New Bedford, or if they're an expat, right? If they don't live in the greater New Bedford area anyway, think about getting them some New Bedford gear from Carter's Clothing and Footwear as a holiday gift. Head over to Carter's Clothing and Footwear. Tell them Chris McCarthy sent you. Good morning. Thanks for holding.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
All right. Last caller was off on a couple of things. Number one is there is a U.S. base in Ukraine. It's about 15 miles from the border of Poland. So we've had troops on the ground actually for quite a while. Whether they're not in the combat, but they're trainers. They're manning, weapon systems, like Iron Dome type stuff, all that sort of stuff. So we have troops on the ground, and they are in harm's way if they happen to get hit, obviously. The other thing is, I don't really believe that Putin will ever use a nuclear weapon, and a couple of reasons. One is he's the wealthiest man in the world. This doesn't get reported on Forbes or anything like that because Forbes doesn't report people that are despots. Pirates aren't going to get on the Forbes list either. And he takes anywhere from 20 to 50% from the oligarchs, which control every facet of industry in Russia. And he's amassed a huge fortune. So not that he's a money-based type person, but, he's got a lot to lose. The other thing is that the U.S. constantly reminds him that we know where he's at all the time. So if a nuclear weapon flies, then he could be sitting on the toilet. We know where he's at. Right. And we send him messages regularly telling him, you were here at this point. He knows that. So he knows he's a direct target if anything happens. So there's a lot for him to lose unless he becomes, and you always hear about, these sort of tales about him being like a crazy man with his finger on the button. That's really not the case. He didn't get to where he's at because he was a crazy man with his finger on a button. Correct. I think, I think there's, I don't really understand what happened to escalate that, that missile usage. And I don't think that, like the last caller said, Joe Biden, made great plays. I don't think Joe Biden's made any plays. I really think that other people have basically signaled what he's going to do, like Anthony Blinken and the Joint Chiefs, and he's just gone along with, sounds good, guys, going back to the beach. So, I don't give any credit to Joe Biden for strategic, anything strategic in the, worldwide. But anyway. No, so we'll and these are the people that were around him in the U.S. government. If you look at the former head of the CIA, help me out here. He wrote a book about Joe Biden. He wrote a book about his career. I can picture him right now. But he was in the Obama administration, and he said that Joe Biden's been wrong about every single foreign policy question since the 80s. Right. And that was an honest broker by saying that, because that wasn't popular. And I agree with you. And I think and half of his administration is from Obama's days, and the other half is from Hillary Clinton. So, and they're pretty, I don't think Obama's necessarily a war hawk, but Clinton for sure is. I mean, she's definitely a neocon. So I think that I'd like to see, I'd like to see all these wars de-escalate. And right now, don't feel comfortable about them and never have, but especially Ukraine. But I don't think we're on the edge of a nuclear war. I just, I don't believe that.
And thanks for the call, my friend, as always. I think that we are always, I watched Oppenheimer this weekend, the movie Oppenheimer, about the building of the atomic bomb and the dropping of the atomic bomb on the Japanese. I think we've been on the brink of nuclear war, the potential for it anyway, since then, right? Since the Russians got the bomb, due to our domestic communist problems, really. If you know a local communist, a domestic communist, thank them for all the turmoil in the world. They're the ones that smuggled the bomb secret to the Russians. It's gross, but that's what they did. Go back to the phones. Good morning. Thanks for holding.
Hello there. How you doing, Chris?
Not bad. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. I just wanted to talk about Biden's decision to put those long-range missiles. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think... Go ahead.
Go ahead. I just want to say it's like right in the final 2 months of him being his presidency. And, wow, I don't know about that one, boy. If those missiles go into Russia, and of course the North Koreans are there too, wow, well, what could happen?
Well, I think it is rather juvenile, and the word probably isn't even appropriate, for President Biden to finally give that okay as he's about to go out the door.
Yeah.
For him to... If they have a legitimate reason to use them, and I think they do, why didn't he do it 2 years ago?
Yeah, there you go. I don't know. I hope this doesn't start World War III. But I don't know. Just it's crazy with the Koreans. One thing I wanted to say, too, is that Ukraine, not that I'm an expert on this by any means, but I felt that Poland and Germany should have supported Ukraine a bit more instead of just the United States.
So they are... Poland's doing a lot for the Ukrainians.
They're in the line of being taken over if the Russians want to go after them, too.
Absolutely. But here's the thing.
Go ahead.
The government of Poland is having a big problem with Ukrainian draft dodgers who are fleeing to go to Poland. So now they're arresting people from the Ukraine who won't fight for their own country.
Okay.
So, it's amazing. The amount of young men in the Ukraine who won't fight for their homeland, who are now hiding out in Poland.
Oh, just taking off. Okay. Yeah, I heard something about that. And, well, I just hope for the best on this. But those they're putting those North Korean soldiers in there, as you say, to sharpen their skills in the battlefield and all that. And, well, I just wanted to call up. And,
no, I appreciate that call. It's madness, all right, that the North Koreans, and here's something you're going to say, really, you did this? But I'll tell you. So Senator McCarthy, with his attorney, who was Bobby Kennedy Sr., right? Robert Kennedy was the lead investigator, one of the lead investigators, one of the lead attorneys for Senator McCarthy's committee, right? McCarthyism was done by Kennedy. And Bobby Kennedy was the lead counsel on a number of hearings into North Korean communist atrocities against American soldiers. And those transcripts are available of the hearings. And they weren't available until 2000. They're on the Senate website. The transcripts of those hearings are absolutely blood-curdling. The North Koreans are some of the most vicious communist soldiers on the planet. The stuff they did to the American soldiers. And we have that information now available. It was under lock and key for 50 years. It came available in 2000. The transcripts of those Senate hearings, conducted primarily by Bobby Kennedy, are blood-curdling. What the North Koreans would do to American soldiers. They would bayonet them tie them to a tree in the no man's land and bayonet them. Okay? So they'd be screaming. Young men, young American men, bayoneted repeatedly, have a metal saber driven through their rib cage, but not enough to kill them, but to leave them alive, while they were chained to a tree so they couldn't run away, knowing that Americans can't listen to their fellow Americans being tortured without coming to do something for them. And that would cause Americans tremendous psychological stress on the battlefield. Eventually, they'd break ranks and go down to try to rescue the Americans. And the North Koreans would gun them down. That type of stuff was done repeatedly. And those communist shock troops have now been introduced to the battlefield of Europe. 508-996-0500. Good morning. Thanks for holding. Hello, you're on the air. (508-996-0500). That's how you can get on the program. Folks, we wouldn't be able to have the fun we have here without the great folks at Mac Auto Sales. They're a tremendous sponsor. A great way to keep beating inflation is by having your car serviced at Mac Auto Sales. Get it ready for the coming ice and cold weather. Get your car winterized at Mac Auto Sales, 188 Rivet Street in New Bedford. They're open 9 to 5 for your convenience weekdays. Give them a call. Make an appointment at 508-565-6221. If you have a foreign car that needs servicing, needs winterizing, perfect. Give Mac Auto Sales a call. If it's time to replace your automobile with a new-to-you car, ask Mac Auto Sales about the quality used cars that they have for sale. Tell them Chris McCarthy sent you. We're going back to the phones. Good morning. Thank you for holding.
Hey, Chris. Don up in Stoughton.
Hey, Don in Stoughton. How you doing?
Yeah, no, I was in military intelligence with the Army Security Agency, and we used to get a lot of feedback information, and even more vile than the North Koreans were the Cubans. Oh, yeah. They would take American prisoners and literally beat them to death with a rubber hose for no reason at all other than beating them to death.
They did that in Vietnam. Don, they did that. I know exactly the case you're talking. Well, one of the cases you're talking about. In fact, that torturer, they believe, is now in the United States if he's still alive.
Well, we can thank Barack Obama or Joe Biden or maybe even Bill Clinton for this, and the Democrats. I mean, they're pure idiots. We're going to fix Cuba, you know. We're going to fix it. But yeah, no, the Cubans were even worse. And then there was a Vietnamese woman who used to torture American troops right in the jungle so they could be heard. She would start off by castrating the boys and then flailing their skin or pulling the skin off their body. And the American troops could hear this going on.
There's nobody worse than the communists. And that's why when I look around domestically, we see many of them still here today, practicing their craft, celebrating Marxist-Leninism theories, and they are as bloodthirsty as anybody else.
Just a quick follow-up. There's a book that was published 20 years ago. It's called The Black Book of Communism.
I've read it, by some French historians.
There you go. If you want to read about the horrors of communism, I mean, one of the things that sticks out is that Stalin killed off all the kulaks. These were the landowners that ran the farms and everything else. He killed them off. And then he told the serfs and the people on the farms, well, you go run the farms now. And they all turned to Stalin and said, but you killed off everybody that told us how to run the farms. We don't know what we're doing. We just did what we were told, as you're telling us now to do it, but we don't know what we're doing. And millions starved, and that's why Ukraine lost more than 7 million human beings who starved to death in the Holodomor. And this is why the Ukrainians really don't like the Russian people or government.
Don, thanks for the call as always. Yeah, the Black Book of Communism It is a country-by-country analysis of what the communist menace has done all across the globe. So it's a very readable book. You can pick a country and go. It's like an encyclopedia. Just go to it and read. You want to read about what happened in Cambodia. You want to read about what happened in Nicaragua. What's still going on in Nicaragua, really, today, because Daniel Ortega, leader of the Sandinistas, is still in control. He and his wife still run Nicaragua. It's amazing. 508-996-0500 so you can get on the program. Take a quick break. We'll be right back. As we get to the colder weather that's obviously coming, make sure you and your loved ones have South Coast Towing in your phone. God forbid something happens, because it will. You want to make sure you have a friend out there on the highway. A friend out there on the highway is South Coast Towing. I know they do a great job. I've sent them before when Natalie's gotten into some automobile trouble when she's not in the area, like out in northern Bristol County, that area, right? I call Chris Medeiros and Sandy at South Coast Towing and send them to go get Natalie, right? I mean, they just do a great job. You can trust the folks at South Coast Towing, and make sure you have South Coast Towing in your phone. Make sure your daughter, your sons, especially these young people that are getting out on the road these days, they need to have a friend out there, right? You can't always be there for them. So South Coast Towing, it's better than you, really, to be there. You don't have a tow truck. You don't have automobile experience, but South Coast Towing does. So, and also, not a bad place to work. If you or a family member is looking for a job, reach out to South Coast Towing. You got to want to work, but you can earn a lot of money there. Those folks do a great job. Chris Medeiros is a great American, right? Really gives back to the community. Really great friend of mine. So make sure you have South Coast Towing in your phone for those emergencies that you can't deal with. They'll deal with it for you. They got a great system over there. Anyway, so we are going to be joined by Robert Bryce in the next hour. Robert Bryce is an energy reporter, been covering the energy industry for decades. He's been here locally to speak on offshore wind. He's not a fan. On the science, he's not a fan. He believes in hydrocarbons and the use of efficient energy, windmills and solar. It's nice. It'll get you an award from your local left-wing environmental group. But really, at the end of the day, you need hydrocarbons, right? Oil, natural gas, things that come out of the ground to run America. And Donald Trump has nominated an oil executive, an energy executive, Chris Wright, to be his energy secretary. I think that is a positive for the economy. I think it is a necessary development in policy. If we're going to bring down the Biden-era inflation, you've got to bring down the cost and bring up the efficiency of energy. And who are you going to do that? A windmill? Come on. Windmills are a joke. They really are. When it comes to energy production, they're a joke. Now, we're going to have Robert Bryce here in the next hour talking about Chris Wright, Donald Trump's energy nominee, secretary. We're going to have to, as they say in The Godfather, go to the mattresses to defend